Now, about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from a friend of mine. Uh, I'll use his name so I can refer to him, Miles. He's on a couple of foundation boards, large ones. And he said, Mark, I don't understand what's going on. Now, he happens to have gone, to one of those schools that has a monstrous pension or, endowment account, 51 billion, and it was Harvard. He said, Harvard is trying to issue a $2 billion debt security, but they have $51 billion in their investment account. Like, why are they issuing a bond rather than? And so I said, well, do some digging, find out what you can about it, and then let's talk in a couple of days. We talked a couple of days later, and he said, well, all I heard was they have a liquidity crisis. Now, being sort of one of their alumni, he can get access to some questions and get them answered. And it happens that Harvard is particularly out of favor with its alumni, so they're being a little more friendly than normal to their students or former students. He said they said they have a liquidity crisis. They have to get this bond issued. Suddenly I realized, I know what's going on. And it took me a little bit to work the pieces together. This has not been written yet in the newspapers, but I do believe this is where we're at now. Keep in mind, the last time I made a prediction, we were either going into a recession or we were in one in 22, and I was oh yeah, wrong, like Tarek said a few minutes ago. Okay, so here we go. Harvard has a liquidity crisis. They need to issue a $2 billion bond to give them some cash, but they have $51 billion in their investment portfolio. They should be able to draw it down. What happened? The answer is they're in illiquid long-term investment securities. Specifically, they're in a lot of real estate and they're in a lot of private equity. Specifically, the largest asset class there is private equity. So now I'm going to home in on private equity. Immediately, I said to Miles, I know, I get it. The portfolio managers, the investment managers at the school have chosen external investment managers, and they've given various pieces of their money to these investment managers who will maximize return. Number two, those investment managers are primarily private equity investors. And so they go out and they put their money to work in illiquid companies that eventually will, turn liquid and they'll be able to get their cash out. The problem is sometimes it's 5 or 7 years to get your cash out. And if something happens, you can't get your cash out, that number is just extended because there is no real second choice. So I'm convinced Harvard and Princeton and Yale and the big Stanford, these large pools of private equity are invested in these private equity funds. No one has had to make a capital call or a liquidity call on the pools. And so the investment managers have been able to bank large investment returns so that they get nice bonuses. The investment managers that are in-house are able to show 18 to 25% returns on their portfolio, makes them look smart, and they get nice bonuses too. And it's the club. And they're on their way to now saying, we need some of that money. You told us we could have liquidity in 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. And we've hit that 3-year, 5-year, 7-year point, and we don't have liquidity. We need to get, because if this $2 billion bond doesn't get issued by Harvard, there will be a call on their investments. They'll simply need to get the cash out. My guess is that those assets are overstated quite substantially. I wouldn't be surprised if they're overstated by between 20 and 35%. That means the private equity market is in for a correction, something that has yet to happen in that market. And I think it's probably something that'll take a year, maybe 2 years to happen. I think it will take 3 years after that to unwind, and it will flow right across the entire investment horizon. Therefore, for those of us retail investors, there won't be many of us, but if we have investments in the private equity sector, then what we want to do is try and get our money out early. Taking a 10% haircut right now, I think will look cheap down the road. But as it unwinds, there will be a whole lot of news about investment managers getting fired and internal investment house, house investment parties being fired. My guess is there will be some heavy turnover in the senior offices at the universities as they clean house, get rid of the old boys club, and they bring in the new club. So that's what I thought would be interesting. When I was talking to Tarek about it, he said, I can see it. He says, I'd love to read that article. And I'm like, man, I haven't read the article. I'm just doing the mosaic and seeing if you take this and this and this and this, like, why would Harvard issue a $2 billion bond? Well, yeah, they would if they're putting up a big building and that's the way they want to fund the building. But this doesn't look like it. It looks like it's simply they need liquidity. They need some cash to run their company. So that's all I wanted to say was I think this is something that may be coming. And if you have some in your portfolio, then you may want to take a look at it. I think there's still lots of time to get out. I don't think that it's imminent, and certainly the bad news has not yet hit the fan. So I think that's coming. I think that's it, Tarek. Anything else I should go to?
No, I think the one thing I would add is private equity and a lot of sort of non-publicly traded assets, they are valued internally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the real sticking point is so,
Mm-hmm.
when someone says, "Oh, I have in private equity, my portfolio companies returned, you know, 13, 15, 20%." And sometimes they might every now and then get an external evaluation done, but it's, the people saying, "Okay, what has this company done? This is what it's worth. This is how it's improved." And they might get an external evaluation done. And I think what you were alluding to is the problem is it's oh, my frat brother is now part of the private equity valuation company. So now he's going to value my company. He says it's worth a lot. It's good for him. I say do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, um,
Yeah, there's a
it's all
circle. Yeah.
everybody's benefit to keep the party going, which is how a lot of asset bubbles form. And the fact that it's an internal valuation or I guess, third party evaluation in a way where it's like when you buy a stock, someone else is on the other end of it that has no relation to the person. That's how we know that's what it's worth. But that's worth stating too, I think.
Yep.
If you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. If you want to watch the whole podcast, click right here.